So we're talking about expanded vision today, and Wayne Dyer, I love that he says, be open to everything and attached to nothing. And when I read that, it just shifted something in me, because I realized how many times I'm closed to things that, not just that don't interest me, but that I don't necessarily believe in. And it's made a huge difference, because I'm much more open to things that don't interest me, because I'm learning that I'm finding a lot out, and my whole consciousness has expanded because I am just open to what is and to what people's thoughts are and ideas, and it's a rich experience in life when we live from that perspective. So one of the ways that I want to enter into this conversation today about expanded vision is looking at, are we stuck in looking at speaking or living in a consciousness of complaining? And every so often I like to bring this topic back up, and it really came up for my benefit, which I'm very grateful for, because I had some ahas through this experience. So I want to share with you just a fun thing that was on the internet, and this is an aspect of complaining. A man who robbed a Wendy's in Atlanta was so put off by his skimpy haul that he called the restaurant twice to voice his disapproval. That's better than what police say Arthur Bundridge did. Bundridge approached a Syracuse, New York bank teller and demanded $20,000. Outraged, when he got home, he discovered he'd been short-handed, so outraged, he stormed back into the bank to tell them what he thought of their service, and that's when he was arrested. That's some interesting complaints, huh? Maya Angelou said, "If you don't like something, change it. If you don't change it, change your attitude. Don't complain." This is a big one for us. I think this is something that complaining is something that we just slide back into without even realizing that we're there. And one of the really important aspects of this is recognizing that complaining is a negative thing, right? If we're complaining, we're not complaining in a positive way, yes? So we've got to recognize that complaining is adding this negative energy to us, to our experience, and to the world around us. Now, the information has come from Will Bowen's A Complaint-Free World. Will actually created this complaint-free world where he offers purple bracelets that you can wear, and the idea is that you put it on your wrist and that a habit starts to take place after 21 days. So the goal is to go for 21 days without complaining. If you complain during that time, you take it off and you put it on the other wrist, and you start your 21 days again. And I know that and you know, just from his book, but also just from things that I've seen on Facebook and stuff, that it takes a lot of wrist changing to finally hit that 21-day mark. And again, it's the awareness, and I love that. It's the awareness that we want to just be open to, wow, how much do I actually complain? Will says that we are confused about what complaining is, that Webster says that to complain is to express grief, pain, or discontent. And he said there's really very few times when it's a true grief or pain or discontent. He said he's not asking us not to express ourselves, not to just take whatever the world sends our way, but what he's talking about here is learning some different and new communication skills. To speak directly to the person, if we have an issue with a person, to speak directly to the person. If it's a situation, to whoever can resolve it, to the organization or whatever. And you know what it's pretty uncomfortable conversation sometimes, isn't it? But it's important. It's absolutely important, because we have a habit of talking to everyone else about people and situations and things, don't we? Because it's easy. It's so easy for us to, and here's one thing I'm going to say is that if you go to somebody that you need to just get your mind clear about something, go to somebody who's not going to dive into the muck with you. Go to somebody that you can express, hey, this is what I'm feeling, and I want to go talk to this person, but I need some guidance on it. So go to somebody who's going to help guide you in that direction. And recognize too that complaining keeps us focused on what? The problems rather than the solutions. And that is 100% true. When we are complaining, we are so focused on the problem, and we have taken any attention away from what the solution might be. Now, Will tells us, and I love these things, that no one ever complained their way to health, happiness, or success. That complaining is like bad breath. You notice it when it comes out of someone else's mouth, but not when it comes out of your own. You have never complained anyone, including yourself, into a positive change. And if it were true that people need to complain to release their stress, then the biggest complainers would also be the happiest people. Some pretty good points, huh? Absolutely. And I love, Will talks about these stages, and one of the stages he talks about is unconscious competence. And this is when we don't realize how much we complain. And our goal is to get to conscious competence, where we are very aware of the words that we're speaking and how we're, just how we're showing up in life as a general rule. There's a great story in his book, and I'm going to read it to you. This woman said, like most of the other folks that took up the complaint-free challenge, I quickly discovered exactly how many of the words I spoke in daily interactions were complaints. For the first time, I really heard myself when I vented about work, whined about my aches and pains, bemoaned political and world issues, and complained about the weather. How many of us? Oh, the weather's so bad today. What a shock to realize how many of my words held negative energy. And I considered myself to be such a positive person. It's true. It's amazing. So again, Will tells us that it's rare that we should ever complain, but we should never gossip, and we should never negatively criticize anyone. So what Will shares is that there are 5 essential reasons why people complain, and he put it into this acronym of GRIPE, which I thought was quite interesting. So the first, the G, is to get attention. People like to be the center of attention, and sometimes someone will complain to get their way. They'll complain to be noticed by other people. It brings the attention right to them, and so that's something to think about. The R is to remove themselves from responsibility, and this could show up as a child in school saying about a homework assignment or something. Well, the teacher didn't give us enough time to do it, or how we can shirk responsibility by complaining about somebody else, or complaining about why, instead of just taking responsibility and saying, wow, I could have asked, or I could have done something more. So shirking responsibility, I think, is something that can really resonate. I is to inspire, envy, or brag. And this is where we're subtly communicating a message that somehow we're superior, or somehow that our thinking is better than. So we're complaining, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this one, because this is the one that really came to surface for me as I was doing this work. P is for power, and power is complaining and getting people around you to agree with your stand. And as you get people to agree with your stand, then you feel powerful because of that. And I can relate to that too. I can relate to times in my life when I've done that. And then the E is as an excuse for poor performance. So excuses in general. Why we didn't do something as good as we could have, why, or even, I'm late for work because my alarm didn't go off, and I couldn't get here on time, and that may be true, but it's like, using it as a complaint kind of thing instead of, again, taking responsibility. So those are the 5 kind of ways. So for me, what I recognized was that I had been really kind of caught up in this whole anger thing over this this no repeal law that's looking that we get to vote on April 7th, and I found myself complaining about quote unquote those people who are trying to get this law on discrimination to get it reversed. And here's the thing that I realized about myself, and I've seen this so many times in myself, and every time I catch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. And I call it reverse judgment, where I'm feeling like they're judging the whole LGBTQ community, and then I find myself in a huge judgment about them and about their ideas and their opinions and about how they're going about things. And when I do that, I want to be perfectly clear here. I absolutely do not agree that this law should be repealed. It's 100% no repeal for me. But I recognized that in my anger and my frustration that I was wanting their belief to match mine. And one of the things that really popped up for me is the very thing that I'm standing for is diversity. And yet I'm frustrated that their belief is not mine. Wow. Yeah. It was just amazing to me. And here's the thing too, that I know that is a negative energy, and it doesn't help anything. And I don't want to. I want to be in the flow of this. I want to see this going smoothly. I want to see us celebrating on April 7th. So I recognize, my gosh, I'm part of the constricting of the flow because I'm in this snit kind of a place, So my expanded vision on this is that everyone, everywhere, has a right to their opinion without me unrighteously judging that. And I have the right to stand in what I know to be the greater truth and to point to that, and no matter what's happening around me. And that's my greatest point of power, is when I can just be in that place and continue to point to the truth, point to the truth, point to the truth, point to the truth. It was a huge aha for me. And I thought, how many times in our life do we find ourselves there? And in that reverse judgment thing, the very thing that I'm so passionate about was the very thing that I was wanting to close down, and that's diversity of opinion. Wow, it was just amazing. One of the little prayers that came for me was, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The wisdom to know the difference. And again, just standing in our knowing of who we are, that's where we can be. That's where the flow occurs. And in no matter what it is that we're facing or what person we're experiencing, that's where we can be, is in that place. And I think out of that place, it is clear what our steps are. When we're in that place, when we're in this place of negative and complaining about a person or a situation or whatever, we're not open to the next steps because we've closed down. We're just like, wrong. But when we recognize that all I have to do is stand in my knowing of who I am and the truth that resonates with me, that opens out the way, and then the next thing will easily present itself that is mine to do or mine to say or is my way to be. And it always works 100% without fail. It always works because that's the way life is. And I thought about how many of you are old enough to remember the show Dragnet? And I love on there because he says, what? Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts, ma'am. And that's really where this is going, is just in saying what the facts are and not making, quote unquote, somebody else wrong in that. So I thought of a couple of examples. So say that you send your child in to clean their room. Anybody ever had to do that? And it's always been amazing, hasn't it? I mean, they clean so great every time. So the complaining would be going in and, you call this clean? You are so lazy, and this is the worst cleaning job that I've ever seen. Is that going to motivate? No. So stating the facts, ma'am, would be something more like, excuse me, I see that these few things weren't done or weren't done correctly, and they're important to me, so I would appreciate you doing them. And doesn't mean they're just going to do them in that moment, but it empowers the other person. It just, hey, this is what I see, and this is what I need to have done. And you may even get in there and show them how to do something. Big difference in complaining or stating the facts. How about if somebody has a very different mindset from mine? Sometimes I find myself in situations where somebody is really negative about somebody else, and I don't feel that way. And so the complaining could be, are you crazy? You are so petty and judgmental. That gonna work? No, state the facts, ma'am. So for me, I would say something like, well, I feel differently than you do. And I think there's always a bigger picture. And in this case, I would rather go and talk directly to this person instead of making assumptions about whatever occurred. We can find our way to stand in our truth and to continue to point to what we believe is the greater truth. And it may not change that person, and it's not up to us to change them. It's up to us to change us and to find ways to communicate differently. Ever been to a restaurant where the food wasn't up to par? Nobody, yeah, okay. So, you could say, and I do always feel bad when people get mad at the waitresses and the waiters, and just the worst food I've ever had, blah, and I think that the stating the facts would be to talk to them or to have the manager come over and to say, my meal really, the meat was tough, the potatoes were cold, and there just wasn't the flavor that I'm used to here. And those are stating the facts. You're still telling them this was not acceptable, but you're not berating them or complaining, and it opens up a different energy. And I love this because I have found for myself, since I first read Will's book, that I really have acclimated to this very well. And when I'm at a restaurant or something and something doesn't get served right, people around me, no, it's okay. I'm like, no. And so, but you can so nicely say, this isn't up to par, and we'd like a different one. And they're almost always great about it, almost always. So, it's the whole idea here is just stop complaining. Just stop it. Just stop complaining. John, how much more time do I have? Okay, good. So I've shared this before, but I love this. I think it's been since 2010 that I've shared this. And it's a skit from Bob Newhart. And this really got me, though, when I heard this skit. So he's a psychiatrist, and there's a girl coming in to see him. So the girl comes in, sits down, and Bob says to her, okay, so it's $5 for the first 5 minutes. I don't take checks, only cash, and I don't give change. And he said, then it's absolutely nothing after that. So she's like, well, okay, that's a really great deal. He said, but I can tell you that our session probably won't last more than 5 minutes. She's like, okay. So he says, okay, go. So she's like, oh, okay, well, I have a fear of being buried alive in a box. And I just started just when I start thinking about being buried alive, and I can't do anything because of this. And he says, has anyone ever tried to bury you in a box? And she's like, no, but truly thinking about it, it makes me not be able to do things. I mean, I can't go through tunnels, I can't get into elevators, I can't be in houses or in anything boxy. And he said, so what you're dealing with is you're claustrophobic. And she's like, yes, that's it. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to say 2 words to you right now, and I want you to listen very carefully, and I want you to take them out of this office, and I want you to incorporate them in your life. And she said, okay, well, should I take notes? He's like, it's if you feel comfortable, but it's just 2 words, most people can remember them. And so she said, okay. He's like, ready? Yes, okay. Here they are. Stop it! Stop it! And she looks at him and she says, I'm sorry? He said, stop it! And she's like, stop it? He says, yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T. And she says, so what are you saying? And he says, Catherine, it amazes me that person after person, they come in here and I say this and they say the same thing. What do I mean? And, this is not Yiddish, Catherine, it's English. Just stop it. So I should just stop it? And he says, well, you don't want to go through life being scared of being buried alive in a box. I mean, it sounds frightening. She said, yes. He said, then stop it. So she says, I can't. It's been with me since childhood. No. Nope, we're not going to go there. And she says, well, in a past life, I found out. No, we're not going to go there. So I should just stop being afraid of being buried alive in a box? He said, you got it. Good job. It's only been 3 minutes, so that'll be $3. And she said, but I only have a 5. And he said, I told you I don't give change. And she said, okay, then I'll stay and get the other 2 minutes. He said, okay. She said, well, I go on these eating binges for days at a time. He said, stop it! Are you some kind of a nut? Don't do that. She said, but I'm compelled to. My mom used to call me fatty. And he said, no, we're not going to go there. But I've been having these dreams. Nope, we're not going to talk about that either. But my horoscope says, we are absolutely not going to talk about that. And she says, well, I have self-destructive relationships with men. And he said, stop it! You do want to be with a man, don't you? And she said, yes. He said, well, stop it. Just stop it. Don't be such a big baby. And she said, well, I'm afraid to drive. He said, well, stop it. How are you going to get around? You got to get in the car and drive, you kook. Just stop it. And she said, you stop it. Stop it. And he said, what's the problem, Catherine? And she said, I don't like this. I don't like this therapy at all. You just telling me to stop it. And he said, and so you don't like it. And she said, no, I don't. So you think we're moving a little too fast, is that it? Well, yes, I do. He said, all right, let me tell you 10 words that will clear everything up for you. You want to write it down? Yes, okay. Are you ready? Yes. All right. Here are the 10 words. Stop it, or I'll bury you alive in a box. I love the humor of that story, but I love because the reality is we can just stop it. But the thing that we have to do is we have to wake up. We have to become consciously competent. We have to start recognizing when we're finding ourselves in those same patterns of complaining. And we have to wake up over and over again. You can get the bracelets. I was going to order them, but it would take 6 weeks to get in. But you can order them online. But, sometimes people just use like a rubber band, and then they move it from wrist to wrist. But this is simply a tool to help us start to become conscious of what it is that we're saying. To start to become conscious of, are my words in alignment with the desire that I have for the flow of my life? Or are my words way out of alignment here? And how can I start doing it differently? There is so much power in this. But I'm going to tell you, I think you're going to find yourself kind of feeling just a little bit comical when you realize how much you complain. Because we just don't think about it. So today is about waking up. Every day is about waking up, but today in particular is about waking up and becoming aware. What am I giving? What is it that I'm offering? Because what we put out, what does it do? Comes back to us. So if we're complaining, we're staying in that complaint energy. But if we start stating the facts and looking for solutions, then we're gonna be in a totally different energy, and just wonderful things are gonna start happening all around us. So I thought that we could close today with this. I love this by Mary Morrissey. So if you'd like to read it along with me together. Today is a brand new day. I will never have this day again. It is an unrepeatable, unmistakable gift to me. Nobody can think my thoughts today but me. Nobody can make the choices today but me. Nobody gets to make the decisions that are mine to make but me. I am so grateful to have a day of life in a lifetime of miniature to craft in harmony the life that I am living. And so it is, and I leave you with this. Stop it! Namaste.